Hi everyone, so we are officially into January again and Christmas and New Year are done with, and it's now 2014, which is just scary in itself, but I thought the perfect way to kind of round up the year would be to talk about all my favourite beauty products from the last 12 months. So I've done my research and I've gone through a backlog of old posts and old favourites videos, just trying to come up with all the products that I was loving throughout the year, not just the ones that I'm really into at the moment. And I've kind of gone with one for each category. So instead of last year where I picked 12 products from 2012 that were my favourites and the standouts, I've kind of gone through best foundation, best mascara, best lipstick, just so that you get a bit of a wider range of products. So this is going to be quite a long video, as you may have guessed already, so I hope you're sitting comfortably, go and grab a cup of tea, and I'm actually going to split this up into two parts just because there is so much stuff to get through. So the first part will be makeup, nails and a few tools, and the second part will be skincare, hair care and body care. So without further ado, I have my list in front of me, I have an array of products here, so hopefully I won't miss any out. But the first category is primer, and primer isn't something I always reach for every day. I kind of save it for special occasions when I know I really want my makeup to last, if I'm going out or if I've got a really long day and I'm going to be wearing makeup for a long time. And I've tried quite a few, and some of them are a bit too drying on my skin, some are just do nothing and oiliness comes through anyway. But the best one I found is the Hourglass Mineral Veil Primer, and this is a tiny little thing. This is the smaller size, I think there's a big one and a small one, and it's quite pricey. I think this one was around £20, so the large one is even more, but I think because I'm saving it for special occasions, I'm not wearing it every single day, it's definitely worth the price tag. It's got a really beautiful formula that kind of sits in between a kind of satiny matte texture, but at the same time it's really moisturising and it feels quite light on the skin, so it's not drying, it doesn't kind of clog up at all, so that's definitely my favourite primer. And then foundation, and I've kind of split this up into three. I've got favourite foundation that's high-end, favourite low-end foundation, and favourite kind of tinted moisturiser, lightweight product. So the first one of those is the NARS Sheer Glow, and I'm definitely late on the bandwagon with this one. It's been around for so long. I think when I started watching YouTube videos maybe 10 years ago, people were talking about this, so I'm definitely late to catch up with this one, but it really is worth the hype. I'd say it gives a kind of medium to full coverage, it's definitely very buildable, and it really smooths out my skin, and it's not necessarily glowy or sheer as the name would suggest, but it just gives you that real kind of polished, flawless look. So I know if I want my skin to look pretty much perfect, this is the one to go for, and the shade ranges are really good. I've got the colour Deauville in this one, which is a really nice colour match for me, but there are lighter ones as well, which is amazing. For the slightly lower end drugstore type of products, it has to be Bourjois Healthy Mix. This is just a foundation that I would pick over most of my high-end ones. I think it's beautiful and of course amazing for the price that it is, and it's just another one of those that gives a glow, a nice luminosity. It's not quite as full coverage, I'd say, as the Sheer Glow is, but it just evens out the skin really nicely. So this I wear on a real kind of natural makeup day, or if I'm just going out, not doing anything too special. And then last of the three is my pick for a sheer base, and this is the NARS Pure Radiant Tinted Moisturiser, and it's kind of a recent discovery for me. I haven't had it for too long, but I've just fallen head over heels in love with it. I was definitely never ever a tinted moisturiser girl, no way. I liked my full coverages, but this I've kind of come round to the idea of having kind of more natural makeup, more of a sheerer finish, and for a tinted moisturiser though, it does cover really well, but it still feels lightweight and breathable, and you know, like you haven't really got anything on your skin. Again, the colour ranges are brilliant. With tinted moisturisers, they usually tend to come in maybe 2 or 3 colours if you're lucky, but I think this one has kind of 10 shades, the standard kind of shade range that the other NARS foundations have, which is really brilliant, and I have the colour Finland, which again is just the perfect match for my skin. So my pick for concealer has to be the Origins Plantscription, and I think I discovered this possibly at the beginning of the year, maybe last year, and it was just a concealer revelation. It's changed the way my makeup looks. I was really into the collection Lasting Perfection Concealer, which I'm sure many people were and still are, but this one was just that bit more moisturising, doesn't look cakey at all, perfect for covering under the eyes, but it also works really well around the face too. So this one I must have repurchased about 3 or 4 times. I can't go without it. So again, my next pick you've probably already guessed, but my best powder has to go to the Hourglass Ambient Lighting Powder in the shade Dim Light, and I've lost count of the amount of times I've mentioned this. It's probably been in 90% of my videos since I bought it, but it's just the ultimate setting powder. For people like me who are scared of kind of mattified skin, this is just perfect. It's luminising, but it stops any oil coming through, it keeps your foundation on. It's just the perfect product. So I think when it comes to blushes and bronzers, you can really tell your favourites from the dents left in them from where you've used them so much, and this is probably my most eaten into dented product, and it's the Clarins Bronzing Duo in Light, and this is definitely my pick for best bronzer, and it kind of comes with two shades. You get a light and a dark, but I just swirl my brush around. As you can see, they've kind of combined themselves together. This is definitely the perfect bronzer colour for fair skins, and I always used to be sort of afraid of using bronzer because I thought it would come out too dark or too orange, but this has definitely changed the way I feel about that, and I've used it so many times. Choosing my favourite blusher was a little bit harder because I don't really tend to kind of actively seek out blushes. They're not something I buy unless I really need them. But definitely my favourite one that I've probably used the most this year has been the Frat Boy blush from theBalm, and this is a very typical me colour, quite peachy pink, kind of quite a warm tone shade. But the thing I like about this is it's really pigmented and it really lasts on the skin. I tend to find most blushes either kind of fade away or sink in or go somewhere throughout the day, but this one really stays looking as bright and as colourful throughout the whole day. And also from theBalm, in the category of favourite highlighter has to be the Mary Lou Manizer Luminizer, and I have become obsessed with this since buying it. It's kind of a goldy, champagne-y highlight, but it's really luminescent, but without being too glittery or too shimmery, so you're not going to look sparkly when you walk outside in the daylight. It just adds this beautiful inner glow to the skin, which I love, so I pretty much use this every single day. So my next pick is for best brow product, and it has to go to the Soap & Glory Archery Brow Tint Precision Shaping Pencil, without a doubt. And again, this is kind of a recent discovery of mine, but it's a double-ended one. It's got a twist up sort of waxy pencil on one end, and then it has this little pen on the other, which is kind of like a liquid tint, so it's perfect for just drawing in those little fine eyebrows and getting a really natural but full looking brow. It's hard to find really great brow products within the drugstore and the lower end products, so this, which I think was under £10, is definitely a bargain. So moving on to eyes, and looking at the products I have here, it seems to be kind of revolving around MAC a little bit, which is kind of a surprise because I'm not really that into MAC anymore, but I think with their eye products they do really stand out. And the first one is Favourite Eye Primer, and again, with kind of skin primers, eye primers, I only tend to use them when I know that I really need my makeup to last, and I don't really get on too well with the conventional eye primers like the Urban Decay one, or you know, those sort of creamy consistency eye primers. I find they just don't hold my makeup on, whereas this one from MAC, which is their Painterly Paint Pot, tends to really kind of glue my eyeshadow down and help it really stay. It's just a very natural, creamy coloured product, which has got a slightly thick, sticky consistency, and it sort of dries down, so once your eyeshadow's on it, it really stays put. So moving on to eyeshadow, and again I have a paint pot here from MAC, and this is in the shade Eclair, and when this came out I was actually obsessed with it. It was part of their Baking Beauties collection, which was a limited one I think, so you can't really get hold of it anymore, but at the time it just sold out completely. It was so hard to find, and I remember I actually phoned up about 10 different department stores all the way up to kind of 100 miles away just to see if they could ship one out to me, and I did find one eventually, and I'm glad I did because I really love the shade. It's just the perfect sort of warm tone, bronzy colour with a slight bit of shimmer in it, but again the consistency and kind of the wear time of the paint pots is brilliant. A few months after that I did manage to find a very similar colour, which is just in their normal collection, and this is Bronze, which is basically Eclair but in a powdered formula. It's a very similar colour, and this one I really wore pretty much every single day for months and months, and I still wear it quite often, so I think that's definitely been my kind of standout single eyeshadow of the year. So at the beginning of the year I was definitely really into my liquid liner. I really loved kind of flicking out a big cat eye, but I've kind of gone off that slightly and I've been more into the natural pencil liners, and this one from MAC again is definitely one of my favourites. This is the Coffee Eye Pencil, which is just a very simple plain brown, but I find it's just slightly softer than using a black, and I put this on my kind of lash line just to give it a bit of definition. I always use it on my bottom lashes again just to kind of define those a bit, so definitely this is one of my most used products. So my favourite mascara of the year definitely has to go to the Clinique High Impact Extreme, and this has kind of a thick plasticky one with really short bristles, and I didn't think that I'd get on with it, but I just absolutely love it. It gets really thick, really long lashes, really volumised in pretty much one coat, so it's a really easy to use mascara. Also a quick mention to the No. 7 Stay Perfect mascara, which I always use on my bottom lashes because it's the only one that I found that doesn't smudge on me, and it really lasts. So those two together are kind of a little wonder combination for mascara. So for lipsticks, I've actually got two here. I've picked a bright one and more of a nude natural. And the first one will come as no surprise to you, and it's MAC's Lady Danger lipstick. This is what I'm actually wearing today, and it's just the perfect bright orange red, which is definitely my favourite kind of shade to wear. And then my slightly more natural choice is Revlon's Pink in the Afternoon, and I don't know if I've really talked about this much on here, but it's always sitting in the bottom of my bag ready to be thrown on throughout the day. It's just the perfect, easy to wear, slightly pinky nude, so it's not too light that it washes me out. It's not got too much brown, which doesn't really suit me. It's just got a really nice kind of pinky natural lip tone to it. So 2013 was definitely the year of the palette for me. I got really into the Naked palettes, the hype surrounding those from Urban Decay, and I bought quite a few palettes throughout the year, and I also pre-ordered one which was the NARS One Night Stand palette a few months ago, and I've never done that with any makeup product before, so yeah, I was definitely into my palettes this year. But if I had to pick one, I think it would probably be this one here from Too Faced. So this is the Natural Eyes palette, and it's kind of the other Urban Decay Naked palette, but I really like the different shades they have in here. There's some quite natural matte ones, and there's some darker, more smoky ones, and there's even a really pretty glittery one in there too. So it's a nice little palette for people that really like natural looking eyes, which is definitely me. I just found that I've really reached for that most, even more so than my Naked palette this year, so that's been my favourite palette, I think. So the last two products in the makeup category are tools, and the first pick is my favourite brush, which has to be the Real Techniques buffing brush. I wish they sold these separately because I would buy 10 of them. They are the perfect brush for foundation, concealer, cream blush, contouring, powder, pretty much anything you could think of you could use this brush for. It's the perfect shape, and I think these clean up really well too. I've had this one for maybe a year and a half, 2 years, and it's still in really great condition. So yes, please start making these on their own Real Techniques. So my little miscellaneous makeup tool has to be an eyelash curler, and I've never actually used an eyelash curler until this year, which may come as a shock to some of you, but I bought the Shuuumiru ones, which are kind of like the cult standard must-buy eyelash curlers, and they really have changed the way my eye makeup looks. My lashes are kind of curly anyway, but using a few pumps of these just really makes them stand out and be big and just wow, and yeah, they're really worth investing in. I also have a sneaky little second one here, which is the new S curler, which is also from Shuuumiru, and this is a very similar kind of concept, but it doesn't have the little metal kind of ends to it, so your lashes don't run the risk of getting caught in those, and you can kind of do just the outside corners for a little flick, or you can go all the way around the lash. And I do find that these are a little bit easier to use, so I'm kind of weighing them up which one's best, but at the moment probably the S curler is standing out for me, but definitely a brilliant investment, eyelash curlers. So those are all my makeup picks done and dusted, and moving on to nails, which is a slightly smaller, easier to manage category. And for my favourite nail polish, I couldn't just pick one. I've had to go for 4 because this is a yearly roundup, and I do like to change my nails depending on sort of the season. So I've got 4 here, and they are all from Essie, believe it or not. They're definitely my favourite formulas, and I think for the price it's just the kind of best nail brand for me. So I've got one for spring, summer, autumn and winter here. So the first one I have is Topless and Barefoot, and this one I wore a lot in the beginning of the year during kind of springtime, and it's a really pretty, slightly pinky, slightly pastel-y nude colour. It's very neutral. It kind of makes your nails look sort of polished and finished nicely, but it's not too bright and overwhelming. And then in the summer I was pretty much obsessed with wearing this one, which is Watermelon, and this is a really kind of bright hot pink, and it's not the kind of colour I tend to go for, but I think as we were getting a lot of sun and it was just really lovely weather in England, I really wanted something quite bright and fun and happy, so that one was on my nails for months and months. And then moving into autumn and the deeper, darker kind of berry tones, it was definitely Soulmate that I was really into wearing. This is sort of kind of a black curranty, slightly reddy, kind of purpley deep berry shade, but the more kind of coats you put on, the deeper it gets, so it can almost look quite black in some lights, which is just the perfect sort of autumn colour, and probably my favourite of the 4, I'd have to say. And then coming into the end of the year and Christmas time, I really got into reds, and my favourite of those has to be Fifth Avenue, and it's a really nice kind of orangey tone, warm red, and I definitely wore that a lot throughout November and December. So my pick for best base coat is again from Essie, and this is their Fill the Gap Ridge Filler, and I have quite ridged nails, they're kind of uneven, so a couple of coats of this really smooths it out, and I find it not only helps my nail varnish look better and go on nicer, it also lasts a lot longer when I have this on, so that's my pick for a base coat. And then for top coat it has to be Seche Vite, and I know this one is slightly controversial, but I think as long as you've got the window open you should be fine, but it's just unrivaled in what it does. It gives the glossiest, kind of longest wearing, chip resistant finish of all the top coats I've ever tried, so that's definitely my favourite one. There is one product that I always repurchase, and this is O.P.I's Nail Envy, and it's definitely my favourite treatment for nails, and I kind of either put this on as a base coat sometimes underneath the Essie one, or I use it on its own for kind of a course of about a week. So you paint it on every day and then take it off at the end, and it's really great for strengthening, putting a lot of kind of nourishment back in, really fortifying your nails, so it's definitely my pick for a treatment. And then my favourite cuticle oil, which is a step that I sometimes miss out but I do really enjoy using, is again from O.P.I, and this is the Avoplex, and I've had this now for maybe a year, 2 years, and you can see how little I've used, but I've used it quite a lot. It smells absolutely beautiful, but it's also very moisturising, and it just adds that bit of extra kind of nourishment to your cuticles after you've painted your nails, or if you just feel like topping up throughout the day. And then for a hand cream, my favourite, which I've talked about quite a lot, is definitely the Hemp Hand Protector from the Body Shop, and again I've tried quite a few different ones throughout the year, but I always come back to this. It may smell a bit funky, but it definitely is brilliant for moisturising. So my last pick is a nail tool, and this is actually the Leighton Denny Crystal Nail File, and I used to just buy nail files, use them for a few weeks and then throw them away once they wore out, but I've actually had this one now for about 4 years, maybe even going on 5, and it's still just as strong, just as, you know, filing as it was when I first bought it. And there's something about the crystal that doesn't wear down, so they're slightly different to the glass ones, which end up going soft, but these ones just stay as sharp and as good for a long time, as you can tell by the amount I've actually had this one for. I also think this stops a lot of damage coming from filing your nails, because it's got a really fine grit to it, and it just really softly and gradually takes down the nail, but it doesn't kind of leave it jagged or split at all, so that's definitely my favourite nail tool. So that's the first part of my 2013 favourites done. Let me know if any of those were your favourites last year, and I have part 2 coming up for you very soon, which will be skincare, hair care and body care, so stay tuned for that.